Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see, back on F1 2020 as always, and we are back with another online race, this time in the default setups, and you can see here, we're actually using a custom grid, trying to put all the fast people at the very back, put myself very to the back last, of course. And we're just going to be rocking the preset 4, probably the best default option you could probably choose. So that is my recommendation. And we arrive at France here today in the multiplayer cars. Some very good drivers here like Ron Hard, Joe, Rosberg, many others as well. Let's see how we get on here. So we've got 5 lights. And as they go out now, trying to get a good start. But as always, just trying to be nice and patient. Nothing too crazy. Trying to get the slipstream from Ron Hard, but we're going to let him have it into this first corner. Try and wait for all the carnage to unravel itself as one person or 2 people have now come completely the opposite way here. So nice and steady through the first lap. You cannot win it on the first lap, but you can definitely lose it as there's a lot of carbon fibre of graffitis. We're going in between 2 cars here, so that was not a very nice sandwich indeed, but we are into P17 now, so making up 3 positions as one person has already decided to call it quits. So I really enjoy these races because most people are going to be running the preset 4 option, which in my opinion feels very nice to drive, as Roha has gone completely straight on. So I don't know if that is a brake failure but a lapse of concentration, but we have now been promoted to P16. As I was saying, I really do enjoy driving these cars, and again, let me know if you like this long video format showing pretty much most of the race here. I think there's always some good things you can learn from this. So you can see this guy here, we're going to go down the inside, so being aggressive when you need to be, as this guy has completely lost the back end of that car. So now we're at P14, not using any ERS because I want to try and avoid using it for as long as possible. Going down the inside of that last corner, that wasn't a good decision. I should have really waited for that. So now I have to actually use a little bit of the battery power, which I typically don't like to use unless I really do need to use it, but I think that was one of those occasions. Now going to turn 1, you can see it's getting a bit sideways again as we got hit on the rear by RCX. Now going into the end of the first sector, really enjoy this here. You can definitely get some people on the inside, so he's staying all the way to the left. We're going to go down the inside here, doing the corner cut at the same time, just about getting the position. And now we're up into P13, so that's pretty good progress so far here. But I can see there's a lot of cars up ahead. Turning off my ERS nice and early because we are really under threat from behind here. See, almost going 3 wide at the end of the straight. So we're just going to take our time, focus on getting that good exit, and you can see how much of a better exit we got. Now we're going to use a little bit of the battery power, and I sense an opportunity to make up another position because I really want to put as many cars between myself and Ronha as much as possible. And you can see the slipstream is actually quite powerful when you're running the same setup, I found, especially with a little bit of the high downforce than you would typically use in a league race. So now we've got quite a few cars between myself and Ronha, probably my main competition. OMG's Joe actually elected to start on the soft tyre. We started on the medium, going for the alternate strategy. APR Jasper, very fast driver. It looks like he's having a little bit of a connection issue. So again, we're going to deploy the ERS to try and get out of that danger zone, but looks like he is deploying it as well. So we're just going to let him have this first corner. He goes in a bit deep. Now we try and go for the beautiful switchback, as we do go for a very nice switchback. Just a little boost of the ERS. And now we've got that move done. And now we're into a points paying position. Now we're behind MBSFN, who is a reasonably fast driver. I come across the lobbies quite a bit. So coming off here, trying to get as good exits as possible. We're all on the same tyre compound, so not really going to overtake him here because he does have the DRS on the cars up ahead. So keeping my engine in lean, actually, to keep my engine nice and cool, because you will benefit with slightly more power because you don't want to overheat the engine. So I'm using the overtake button once again because I suspect I've probably saved up a little bit more than everyone else, turning it off. And now you're seeing the benefit of this slipstream, carrying that momentum. The slipstream is actually very, very nice going down into here. He goes in a bit deep. We just slide down the inside, getting the move done again. Nice and decisive. And now we're into P8 with quite a few cars between myself. Well, I was going to say that. There's only one car now between myself and Ronha, who is very, very quick, obviously, on this game. So now coming up behind Speed Demon. Keep on catching people who do have the DRS on the cars ahead. And one thing to mention about the fuel, a lot of people probably say, you've had so much fuel for this race. I can confirm, when I've taken out 3 laps of fuel, it's only really gained me about 3 or 4 tenths in lap time. So really, it's almost like a tenth per less lap you actually take out. So finishing with a lap more fuel, it really, in my opinion, does not make a big difference. On last game, it made a huge difference. Last game, it was like a second or something like that, and it really helped the tyre temps. This game, it really doesn't. Hence why you see a lot of people not really bothering too much about the fuel, trying to get as low as possible. So definitely something to keep in mind. But now we come up behind Speed Demon, not going to overtake him down on this one. We're going to try and get a good exit off this chicane once again here, using a little bit of the boost, and I think we're going to turn it off actually quite early. So we turned it off quite a way down the straight, but we're just going to use that momentum and the slipstream once again I spoke about. It's actually very, very powerful in these cars, and we're going to go down the inside, and now we're into almost P7. I think we're just about in P7 now, coming up behind TRT Immortal. And I have to say, I love driving these default setups. I feel I'm actually much better suited to this than I am with the custom setups, because you actually have to really kind of deal with the tyre temps as well at times as well. It's very understeer, which definitely suits my driving style a lot more. As you can see, OMGH Joe setting the fastest lap. He is still on those soft tyres, so we should be more of a threat towards the end of the race, as we actually set a purple last sector. But just making sure we get the DRS on TRT Immortal, which I believe we're quite comfortably going to be doing so. But you can see at the end of this lap here, we've actually caught up a little bit more to the guys in front, keeping a good distance to Ronha behind, who actually does have a time penalty. So it's very easy to get a penalty around this track. I found this. He actually goes out wide again. And coming through into here, let's hopefully these two guys pit, which is very good. I really wanted them to pit. So now I'm going to get the benefit of the DRS as well, because the detection point is actually just before you dip into the pit lane. So most people pit. You can see Joe is pitted, and it's only Rosberg who is out ahead of me, who obviously started on the same tyre as Ronha, with the benefit of the DRS, putting the fastest lap of the race. We're coming towards the end of lap 6 now. We've actually made quite a bit of an inroad into Rosberg, using a bit of the ERS on that end lap just to defend from Ronha, because I really didn't want him to get ahead of me. So we're going to follow Rosberg into the pit. Ronha actually decides to continue for another lap, which is interesting. But I just really wanted the track position, and hopefully we wouldn't come out in too much traffic here. So coming out of the exit here, putting on soft tyres for the end of this race. Got a little bit of a gap to Rosberg, who does have a 3-second time penalty, but I would really, really like to try and win this on the track itself. So hitting that pit limiter line, come out here, let's see where we are. So Joe has come past us. The undercut from them is not that big, because they go on the medium tyres, which is not a very, very fast tyre around here. It's the soft tyres that are electrically quick. However, they do go off very, very quickly. So coming out in P9, and now I think we're going to stay on board for pretty much the most, or for the last part of this race here. So coming out with 54% ERS, you can see there's no real threat from behind. Although Rosie probably does get the DRS, but he's not going to be a threat down the straight. So we are just going to not use any of the overtake button and keep it in the standard going through here, so we can afford to burn a little bit more fuel at this stage here. Coming off the exit of this corner, still not using any of the overtake button. So Ronha on the in lap is probably using quite a bit of his ERS to try and limit the undercut as much as possible. But I was pretty confident that I would still maintain the track position. So we're coming up to the back of Immortal now. Still not using any of the overtake button. Putting it in lean again, as I said, having more fuel really doesn't affect that much of a lap time, in my opinion. And I've tested it quite a lot as well. It really doesn't, like, from 2 laps of fuel to positive 2 laps of fuel. So we're going down the inside of Immortal now, getting that move done very, very nicely here. And let's see where Ronhar actually comes out of the pits. You can see we have done a slight undercut, but the good thing is we haven't really used that much of the ERS at all. So we're putting ourselves in quite a nice position at the moment. But go back to the fuel. If you had 2+ laps of fuel and then go to -3 laps, I tested this at Silverstone, I only gained 3 to 4 tenths of a second. So it really is not that of a big deal, in my opinion. And it's probably a better thing that you actually overfuel for a lot of races than underfuel, because you lose a lot of performance if you can't use rich. But now we are trying to attack these 2 guys in front. Ronhar has actually got past Immortal on that straight. So again, I know I'm probably have a lot more ERS than most of these guys here. So I'm going to use a little bit again just to try and put another car between myself. I can see his red light is flashing, so I'm going to turn this off quite early before the corner itself. And you can just see we're carrying that momentum into this long right-hander very, very nicely. And now we are behind OMG's Joe, who is on these medium tyres. So these are definitely going to be slower than the tyres I am on at this stage of the race. And you can see Rosberg is 2.4 seconds up the road here. So my aim is really to try and catch him. But I do, again, have to be quite careful with the ERS management. So coming off here, not using any of the overtake, using a little bit of rich to go down this straight here. Let's see what the lap time is. It's 30.9, so a pretty fast lap at this stage of the race. Currently using lean once again just to try and keep my engine as cool as possible, because you do extract a lot more of the power. If you overheat your engine, I feel you lose so much time down the straight. This is why you see so many people do it. It's not really for traction purposes per se, it's really just for the engine temperature. So see, come off here using lean and now back up into rich here. Not going to use any of the overtake button once again, because I suspect that Joe is probably using it himself, and I think you could tell by this he is definitely using a little bit. So still able to harvest this ERS. I've still got over 50%, which is actually quite a lot, because it's very, very difficult to save around here. Come up the exit here, we get a very good exit, not using any of the overtake button. And you can just see with the pure momentum and the slipstream, we're not even going to have to use the overtake button. Going down the inside here, I don't think he's going to fight this too hard, because he knows the tyres I'm on are just so much faster at this stage of the race here. And this is perfect because we've still got over 50% ERS. I believe Rosberg has been pushing a little bit, so I'm going to try and bait him into thinking that I'm going to be using it now on this lap. But in fact, I'm actually going to save it to the last 2 laps. So coming off onto here, we've got a car between myself and Ronhar once again. I think Joe and Ronhar, I believe them 2 are using the ERS as well, which I can tell. So I know for sure that I'm in the best position possible in terms of battery management. You can see the gap is still about 2.4 seconds. So at this stage, I'm not very interested in actually closing that gap. I just want him to think that I'm probably going to be using a little bit. So what I want him to do is to be using it on these laps, and then on the last 2 laps, he'll have nothing to really defend with. That's the target. So you can see again, we're 60% ERS now and still not using any of it, because we've got such a good exit coming off that last corner. See, the gap to Rosberg is about 2.4, 2.5. So I am confident that he is trying to deploy a little bit, as we deploy just a tiny bit now, just to give ourselves a little bit of a boost coming off this corner. But you can see again, we are at no threat from the cars behind here. Coming into this long right-hander, really, really enjoy this, and really, really enjoy this track, to be honest. I absolutely love driving this. And another thing to say is that please let me know if you like the camera angle I'm actually using in this video. I feel it's probably a lot better than the ones I have been using. And also let me know if you are still interested in a default setup league, because I would absolutely love to be driving it. I feel I'm actually so much stronger when I drive in these cars where it's completely equal than the custom cars, in my opinion. But just let me know on that. But with you back to this, we're about still 2.3 seconds behind. So again, we've still got almost 60% of the ERS here. So again, we're not pushing at this stage. I'm just trying to keep the cars behind without using any ERS, and then just save it all for this last lap, because you can quite easily, if someone has no ERS and use ERS, you go gain over a second a lap, and you can see we're about 2 seconds behind now, just trying to dip under that 2 second mark, just to try and put a little bit more pressure on him, just to try and force him into just wasting all of his battery, using a little bit of a boost once again on the exit of this corner, using quite a bit now, so just trying to really carry that momentum. And you can see we've gained a 2 temps straight away just by doing that, almost 3 temps here. So I'm going to try and gain another temp for 2 temps in each of the corners, and then use that little boost going down each straight, as Ronha has now come up into P3 here. So the gap is now 1.7 behind Sierra Rosberg with 2 laps to go after this. So I have to gain only 3.5 attempts a lap just to get in the DRS zone. So that should be very possible, and that's the target, because once I get up to the back of him, I want to have some battery to actually use something to try and attack him on the end of this race. So going into turn 1 now, the gap is 1.6 seconds. I can afford to take a little bit more risk with the track limits as well, because I only have 1 warning in this race here. And you can see here now, the gap is now 1.5, 1.6, going down ever so slightly. And now we're going to use probably a little bit of the boost come off this corner. You can see the gap is now 1.3 seconds. So we've gained quite a lot of time just on our driving and the traction off there. And still having about 25% of the ERS is a pretty good margin to have at this stage of the race here. So coming through to here, just try to get as close as possible on this last lap, trying to ideally get in this DRS zone going down the pit straight, but still trying to harvest a little bit in advance here. Going down here, you can see the gap was extending a little bit, so I think he's still trying to just keep himself out of this DRS zone. We've got 4 tenths or 5 tenths of a gap behind Ronha, who you managed to contain pretty nicely. Going through into here, this is the section where I need to really just try and gain some lap time here. So you can see we're using the ERS now, going through into this penultimate last corner. The detection point was there, so we're not going to get it going down this main straight, but trying to get some good traction coming off this corner. And you can see we've got some very good traction, because we are now under 1 second, which is exactly where we need to be. We still have about 20% of the ERS, which again I suspect is more than what Rosberg is on here. So going through this section, not using any of it here, I was quite confident that I should be able to, with the driving, to keep within this DRS zone at detection point, which is actually on the exit of this corner. In fact, many people think it's before, but it's actually right here. And you can see we're 7 tenths away, so we're going to use a little bit of the ERS just to really defend a bit from Ronha behind. Rosberg has used a lot of the ERS. Ronha is closing in very slowly, but I don't think he's going to be close enough. And you can see the red light was flashing from Rosberg, so I know we have got quite a bit more of the ERS in him now. So we're deploying all of it now on the exit of here now. We knew how powerful this slipstream actually was. So coming through it, we're closing very quickly now. He goes defensive to the inside, so we're going to let him have the inside. We're going to try and go for the switchback, just poking our nose down the inside, having a little bit of the contact here. Now going to nowhere really to go, so we had to cover off from Ronha just a little bit behind. Now using the rest of our battery available going through into here. We're going to try and slip down the inside here, trying to get the outside of this corner. And we try and make the jump, but we've actually been pushed off the track ever so slightly, losing a position to Ronha, using the rest of our overtake button. But coming across the line, we are going to win this race from last on the grid due to not having any penalties. Nice. I think maybe at that last corner, I could have maybe gone for the switchback, but I think Ronha was so close, it would have been very hard to do that. But that is another default setup Masterclass, last to first, on a very competitive grid. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for the support on my videos as always. and I will catch you very, very soon. Peace.